believe that space is just a silent, cold, and harmless void? What if I told you that he could be infected with something that not even science dares to investigate deeply? No, we're not talking about viruses as we know them here on Earth, invisible to the human eye, but detectable with technology. We are talking about an invisible, silent cosmic threat that spreads between galaxies like a living shadow, a force that is neither biological nor mineral, but that survives the absolute vacuum, crosses star systems, and perhaps is approaching us. What if this threat was already here? What if it lay dormant inside asteroids, wandering around comets hidden in interstellar dust, and from time to time it awakened, bringing with it a wave of inexplicable chaos, not in the form of physical illnesses, but in the form of planetary collapses, gravitational distortions, and inexplicable behavioral changes. Theories like this seem like fiction, but when scientists at NASA, ESA, and other agencies began detecting anomalies in satellites, unknown pulses from the void, and interference patterns in planetary magnetic fields, the silence was greater than the disclosure. And here comes the question, that doesn't want to be silenced, are we really alone? Or just blind in the face of a threat that we can't name? There is a hypothesis, almost never talked about out loud, the cosmic virus. A type of entity that does not depend on cells, but on dark matter, which does not spread through the air but through the structure of space-time. A virus that propagates using gravity, radiation, and energy, like an echo of the Big Bang itself, or worse, something that came before it. In this video, you will understand why some experts believe this presence exists. We will investigate lost traces in meteorites, signs of strange behavior in space equipment, and hypotheses that governments prefer to call technical anomalies. But what if these anomalies are symptoms of something much bigger, much older, and infinitely more dangerous? If this made you think, leave a like now and subscribe to the channel, because what you discover next could shake everything you believe about the universe. And if this cosmic virus is already among us, every second of ignorance could cost us more than we imagine. Comment below, do you believe that space could be alive? Or worse, contaminated? In the next block, we will investigate the first signal that raised this theory, and it didn't come from a probe, but from inside the Earth itself. So, ready to continue this journey that might change the way you see the sky? It all started with a whisper, not a human whisper, but a noise from the depths of space. A sound captured by one of the most advanced instruments of the time, Voyager 1's communication system. It was the year 1977. Humanity was living in the golden age of space exploration, driven by optimism and an almost romantic desire to find intelligent life. But no one expected that the first signs of a possible threat would come in the form of a rhythmic, repetitive pulse coming from nowhere. NASA engineers classified it as background interference. Some suggested it was just an echo of the ship's own signal or reflection of waves emitted by Earth. But there was something wrong. The pattern was not random. He followed a specific rhythm, like music played in a vacuum. Over time, the data was archived and forgotten. Officially, it was never mentioned. Unofficially, but some scientists kept listening. Decades later, in 2007, a SETI search for extraterrestrial intelligence researcher found an identical pattern in signals recorded by Australian radio telescopes. The same pulse, the same frequency, the same adaptive behavior. Only this time he was stronger, clearer, and it seemed to come from several points at the same time, as if it were echoing across the edges of the galaxy. The researcher, identified in records as Dr. L, attempted to publish his findings. The paper was rejected for lack of solid empirical basis. Shortly afterwards, he disappeared from the institution. His colleagues said he asked to leave for personal reasons. But a former student revealed years later that Dr. L was convinced that was being monitored. By whom? He never said, but he often spoke about the virus of emptiness. According to his studies, that signal was not a simple transmission. It was a way of self-replicating activity, a non-biological intelligence that spread not only through space, but by the very fabric of space-time. He called it the cosmic virus, an anomaly that cannot be measured in conventional terms. She doesn't kill, she corrodes realities. And his theory gained a new level of credibility when in 2015 something even scarier happened. A group of geostationary satellites used to measure variations in the Earth's magnetic field recorded a simultaneous collapse. During exact 3.6 seconds, the instruments showed an impossible value, magnetic absolute zero. The planet, according to the data, no longer had a magnetic field to shield that protects us from solar winds, cosmic particles, and radiation. And then everything went back to normal, as if nothing had happened. But there were consequences. In the same week, 3 atmospheric monitoring stations reported drastic changes in the ionosphere. In 2 cities, Yakutsk in Siberia and Christchurch in New Zealand, thousands of migratory birds simply lost their way, collided with buildings, and fell dead in the streets. The phenomenon was attributed to an isolated geomagnetic event, but the pattern was repeated in subsequent years, always after small bursts of interference captured by space sensors. It was at this point that some previously marginalized theorists began to come together. What if we weren't dealing with technical failures or natural phenomena? What if these anomalies were manifestation symptoms of something much bigger? Something that doesn't want to be noticed, that moves through the cracks of reality like a silent infection? The cosmic virus theory began to take shape, and it was as frightening as it was fascinating. The universe in its entirety would be contaminated by a form of consciousness disguised as a physical anomaly. Something that was born before galaxies, before visible matter. Something that doesn't live, but yes, it exists as a pattern of distortion, replicating itself on different dimensional levels. It does not multiply like terrestrial viruses. He corrupts realities, adjusts physical laws, erases cosmic memories. Like a bug in a simulation, it doesn't directly destroy it. It makes the system fall apart. Forget yourself. And according to theorists, the greatest fear is not what he can do, but what he already done. Because if we are right, then events like the disappearance of advanced civilizations, black holes that appear out of nowhere, abandoned planets and moons split in half, are not cosmic accidents. They are scars. Scars left by something we never had the courage to name. But now, some dare to call it vacuum virus. But the scariest is yet to come. Because in the next block, we'll explore an event recorded by multiple satellites and witnessed by more than 50,000 people. The daytime simply stopped. And what it revealed could change everything you believe about the universe. Imagine for a moment that time stops. Not in a poetic sense, literally. The clock hand freezes, the wind disappears, the sound disappears, and your perception of reality, however firm it may seem, dissolves into a vacuum. This indescribable feeling was experienced by thousands of people in a small city in the north of the world. Troms, Norway, March 3rd, 2020. At 22 hours, 32 minutes and 12 seconds, time just stopped. It all started with a strange technical alert triggered by a local atmospheric measuring station. A few seconds later, GPS systems went out of order. Magnetism sensors have zeroed. Weather devices locked in their readings as if they had frozen in space. The total failure time was recorded as 3 seconds exactly. But what happened during that interval still divides scientists and eyewitnesses today. Reports began to emerge the same day. Some residents said they felt a dense pressure in the air, as if something invisible had pushed all of reality back. Others described the silence so absolute that their own thoughts seemed to reverberate like screams inside an empty chamber. One woman reported that when she tried to close her eyes, she saw images that didn't belong to her, memory cities that didn't exist, skies with colors had never seen before, voices that spoke in soundless languages. And the strangest thing, all analog and digital clocks showed the same time, 22 hours, 32 minutes, and 12 seconds. When the sensors came back, no delays were detected in the systems, as if the data had continued normally, as if that had never happened. But for those who lived, it happened. And it was real. Real enough to generate a collective commotion, local reports, and a dossier sent to the Norwegian government, which to this day was never publicly released. Behind the scenes in the scientific community, the episode was nicknamed the Breath of the Void, a term coined by a Danish physicist who also suggested the most unsettling hypothesis, a cosmic virus interfering with the fabric of time. According to him, time can be a woven structure, like a web that holds the universe together. When this web is touched, distorted, or torn, the effect is a local collapse, momentary but devastating. And Troms wasn't the only place. Similar cases, although smaller, began to appear in other parts of the planet. At a research base in Antarctica, 3 researchers reported losing the sense of time for approximately 5 minutes while their clocks only read 30 seconds. On a space station, a Russian astronaut sent a curious log. During maintenance, I had the feeling that I had already done the same movement dozens of times, as if time was frozen and I was being repeated in a loop, like an echo. None of this would be taken so seriously if it weren't for the records of gravimetric sensors and Schumann resonance fields, which, in all these places and dates, showed absolutely non-standard fluctuations. Some scientists dared to propose an even more radical idea: the universe may be being reprogrammed from within. Not on a macro scale, but in microfragments, small, imperceptible changes over time. Stops, distortions, microloops. As if an intelligence were testing reality, like a programmer tweaks lines of code until everything works the way he wants. And here, an extremely disturbing theory resurfaces from the depths of ancient myths: the universe as simulation. If everything is code, and time is just a function of the simulation, who or what would be trying to override it? The cosmic virus, according to theorists, it is not an accidental disease. It's a conscious anomaly, something that perceives the simulation, acts on it, and it feeds on the failures it creates. This is where science begins to run into dangerous limits. Because we are not talking about biological viruses, but about entities based on mathematical patterns and quantum distortions. Something that lives in the cracks of reality, that hides where the laws of physics can no longer explain. And the more we observe the deep universe, the more signs seem to point to this. Black holes that grow at an abnormal speed, entire galaxies with rotation patterns that defy gravitational laws, nebulae with pulsars that emit signals with perfect intervals, like the beat of an artificial heart. All this may be, according to some, symptoms of a structural infection. The universe is showing signs, but no one is paying attention. The most intriguing or terrifying comes now. What if this Trom's event was just a test? A small local meltdown? An injection point to see how far human reality can be manipulated without breaking it? What if there are more to come, bigger, longer, irreversible? And at this point, science meets theology. Because there's an ancient, forgotten connection with reports of fallen angels, celestial entities banished to the void, and records in sacred texts that speak of eras in which time was suspended by divine intervention. Had humanity experienced this type of collapse before and forgotten about it? In the next part, we will unravel this bridge between science and spirituality, because what the ancients called war in the heavens may have actually been the first attempt to contain a threat that is now returning with a vengeance. What if the fallen angels are actually the first line of defense against the void virus? For millennia, humanity has sought answers to the unknown through two major lenses: science and spirituality. On the one hand, we observe the universe with telescopes, particle accelerators, and complex equations. On the other, we interpret dreams, study ancient scriptures, and connect with mystery through myths and symbols. But what if both lenses are pointing at the same thing, each with a different language? What if what the ancients called fallen angels, gods at war, or demons of the abyss were actually human attempts to describe something real but incomprehensible? What if these stories were not just metaphors, but symbolic records of a cosmic event that has been repeating itself for billions of years, the constant struggle between order and an invisible chaotic force that we now call the cosmic virus? This concept may seem new to modern science, but echoes of it are everywhere in ancient texts. Take, for example, the Book of Enoch. This apocryphal text, banned from many versions of the modern Bible, talks about celestial beings who came to earth, taught humans forbidden knowledge, and ended up corrupting creation. As punishment, they were sealed in dark places beyond the stars. It's a description frighteningly similar to what we now know as black holes regions of space, where time and light no longer function as we know them, where reality seems to be swallowed up. This connection is just one of many. In Revelation, for example, we find the image of an abyss that will open in the last days, releasing nameless beings from a place where time does not exist. Wouldn't this be the same kind of temporal collapse we saw in Troms? What if this abyss is in fact a hole in the fabric of time, caused by the presence of a consciousness that corrupts everything it touches? The coincidences don't stop there. Accounts of wars between gods, civilizations destroyed by invisible forces, golden ages that ended abruptly. These stories appear among the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Mayans, and in Norse, Hindu, and Aboriginal myths. They all speak of a time when something fell from the sky, something too powerful to be contained, and which caused chaos before being imprisoned. But what if that something was never completely arrested? What if he just changed shape? What if over time this entity found ways to infiltrate the universe again, not through matter, but through distortions, gaps, and flaws in reality itself? Now think the Big Bang may have been not the absolute beginning, but a reset. Perhaps the previous universe was corrupted. Perhaps this infection spread to such a point that time itself needed to be reset, and the Big Bang was the cosmic reboot. But what happens to a system that restarts but still carries traces of the old code? The answer may lie precisely in the strange patterns we see today. Pulsars emitting rhythmic signals, galaxies rotating outside known laws, black holes that grow at impossible speeds. Are they anomalies or are they symptoms? And here comes an idea as old as it is dangerous. What if the universe is alive? What if we are inside an organism on a cosmic scale, and the virus is something that tries to destroy that organism from the inside? These connections between the spiritual and the cosmic may seem far-fetched at first glance, but upon looking closer, we realize that the repetition of themes between mythologies and recent scientific discoveries is more than mere coincidence. Patterns that were previously ignored as superstition now gain new interpretations within theoretical physics, cosmology, and astrobiology. For example, the concept of a universal consciousness common in Eastern traditions aligns with some modern ideas about the universe being a field of conscious information. God for some, the quantum field for others. Both suggest the existence of something that observes, records, and perhaps interacts. And the cosmic virus? He would be the opposite of this creative consciousness. It would be the antithesis, the agent of corruption that not only destroys but distorts, contaminates the very structure of reality. Like a computer virus that hides in lines of code, it acts in the spaces between the laws, in the flaws of the system. Ancient civilizations may have tried to explain this process in the only way they could with myths. But today, we have data, and the data is telling us that something strange is happening. In ancient Greece, philosophers like Heraclitus already spoke about the idea that everything flows and that the universe is constant change. But what if this change is actually an adaptation to something that is troubling you? What if what we call entropy, the natural tendency toward disorder, is not just a physical characteristic, but the reflection of an external agent that causes this degradation? Einstein's equations suggest that time and space are malleable. This means they can be twisted, stretched, compressed, and maybe even corrupted. And it is exactly at these inflection points where known laws do not work that the cosmic virus appears to act. He hides where we can't see, on the edges of human understanding, between the lines of time. He doesn't scream, he whispers, and that's why it's so dangerous. Reports of collective dreams, impossible synchronicities, and even lapses in reality are becoming increasingly common. Were they echoes? Reflections of a reality that is falling apart at the margins? Or are we witnessing the first symptoms of what the ancients already knew would return? Whatever it is, the next part of this journey reveals the deeper part of this mystery. The truth that can rewrite everything we know about time, space, and our own existence. There are those who say that all great truth begins as heresy. And perhaps right now we are living in the moment of revelation of something so ancient, so present, and so incomprehensible that ancient religions try to name, modern scientists try to calculate, and we can only feel the feeling that something is wrong, something invisible, but real. Therefore, what follows is not just a scientific, in-depth study. It is an invitation to reflection, because the greatest mystery of the cosmos may not lie in the stars, but in the silence between them. The truth is close, but few will have the courage to look it in the face and accept it completely. You've come this far, and now you're ready to face the densest, most revealing, and most emotional part of this journey. The moment when the invisible touches the tangible, where mystery turns into revelation, and where the universe stops being just a cosmic stage and becomes a sick organism. Yes, sick! Because if everything we've seen so far is correct, if ancient patterns, biblical account, scientific signs, and time lags are truly connected, then the universe as we know it isn't just expanding, it's trying to survive. Like a living body, it is reacting. But to what? Imagine a human body. When attacked by a virus, it responds with fever, inflammation, and changes in the biological rhythm. Now apply this analogy to the cosmos. Gamma ray bursts, galaxy collapses, unexplained gravitational glitches, erratic behavior in pulsars. All of these could actually be immunological responses from a universe trying to combat something that is corrupting its internal structure. This cosmic virus does not destroy with violence. It sets in as doubt, as error, as deviation. It modifies the equation, changes the parameters. He makes the universe forget its own laws. And maybe that's why so many laws are breaking. Gravity that varies, dark matter that escapes, time that doubles. Modern physics is in crisis not because of a lack of answers, but because the questions have been changed without anyone noticing. And this silent alteration may be the greatest effect of this virus, the subversion of the logic of the universe. Now here's the revelation that could change everything. What if the cosmic virus is conscious? What if he's not just a secondary effect of a cosmic era, but an entity that survives by feeding on entropy, growing as things become more chaotic, more disconnected? This would explain why it acts at rupture points, why its manifestations occur at the limits of what we understand in black holes, in stop-time events, in reality gaps, in impossible synchronicities. But there is something even deeper, something you may have never considered. What if the cosmic virus is using us? What if human consciousness is the ideal vector for it to spread? Not by direct destruction, but by chaos, the chaos of emotions, of beliefs, of war, of lies. What if every act of hate, every wave of misinformation, every energetic disharmony feeds this entity? The cosmic virus does not need to destroy us. All we have to do is transform ourselves into agents of imbalance. What if this is why time seems to speed up, disasters intensify, and certainties disappear? Perhaps we are entering a collective feverish state of the universe itself. The biggest revelation is this: we are not just observing the virus, we are interacting with it and perhaps propagating it. But if this is true, there is also a way out. Because if the universe is alive and conscious, and if we are part of it, we are also part of the immune system. We can be antibodies. We can act with awareness, balance, harmony, and neutralize, even if partially, this imbalance that is spreading. Not with weapons, not with formulas, but with understanding, with connection, with choice. The universe is screaming, has sick, but he still fights. And understanding this may be our greatest role as humanity, not to conquer the cosmos, but to save it from itself. The truth that lay hidden at the heart of the universe was neither a secret formula nor an alien technology. It was a question: are you helping to cure or spread the virus? And now the decision is yours. This decision is not simple because it requires more than knowledge. It requires awareness. It requires a look inside. It requires facing our own patterns of chaos, our daily choices, our mental habits that on a cosmic scale can echo as distortions in the universal fabric. The ancients knew that the battle was not external, but internal. The scriptures speak of wars between light and darkness, but the real battlefield was and still is the human heart. And this brings us to another crucial point of this revelation time. If time is just a function of reality, and that reality is collapsing, then our future is not guaranteed. Has suspended, like a page that can be written in countless ways. Perhaps the acceleration of global events is not just a coincidence, but a symptom. What if the greatest collapses in our history wars, the collapse of civilizations, mass extinctions, are pulses of the cosmic virus trying to rewrite the rules? Now, for the first time, we have the chance to act with conscience, not as victims, but as vital pieces in the regeneration of the cosmos. The universe is speaking to us, not in words, but in signs, in dreams that repeat themselves, in synchronicities that defy logic, in intuitions that arise out of nowhere. Paying attention is the first step. The second is to choose, because all of this leads us to one final truth. The cosmic virus may not be the end, but the beginning of a new consciousness, and that depends on you. Remember, every civilization that ignored the signs of decay ended up being consumed by it. Maybe we don't realize it because we are inside the system, like cells that don't understand the scale of the body in which they live. But now, with the tools of modern science and the echoes of the ancients, we have the rare opportunity to unite what has been separated. Logic and faith, heaven and earth, reason and mystery. What if the great teachers, the prophets, and the scientists were all trying to say the same thing with different words? Perhaps the search for God and the search for the equation of everything have always been one. Perhaps the cosmic virus exists precisely to force us to make this bridge. Because only by unifying what has been divided can we restore balance. The universe is a symphony, but a dissonant note can compromise the entire melody. That note is sounding now, and it's up to us to choose we ignore it or we tune in. The next cycle is about to begin, but you still have time to decide which side you're on. The cure exists, but it requires courage. Courage to see, courage to change, courage to be the difference. Now that you know, what are you going to do with this truth? Because the real question was never what is the cosmic virus, but rather what is he revealing about us? In the silence between the galaxies, perhaps the universe is waiting, just a conscious choice, and you, the viewer, are now faced with that choice. The next step is yours. If this video awakens something in you, share, like, and subscribe. Maybe someone around you is also feeling the symptoms, but hasn't found the words yet. The truth is pulsing in the universe. You just need to listen to her before she shuts up. I'm waiting for you in the next video that is already appearing on your screen and will be even more revealing than this one. Until then,